Why is he talking about ethnic cleansing in the Gaza Strip?
Conversation.
That is empire.
See, you lost
total red herring.
is
red herring.
Stay on pushing for America to be a global empire.
That's a total red herring. Total red herring. Total red herring.
And by the way, I don't support.
Go after the
guy who
argument.
Smokes and spends all day arguing with strippers and OnlyFans girls going to speak up? I don't know.
They make better arguments than you do.
Andrew Wilson just slammed these Warhawk neocons on Piers Morgan Uncensored for their terrible take on the Ukraine war in this clip, as Andrew Wilson calls out the blatant lies from one of these neocons who is a commander at NATO, and then later, after being attacked by this other warmonger and YouTuber Jake Bro, Andrew Wilson throws his petty insult right back in his face. So let's check out Andrew Wilson go off on these two idiots in this clip from Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Of money that are loaded onto a C-17 and then delivered into Ukraine. It's money that is spent replacing or buying ammunition, refurbishing old equipment that is then loaned or given to Ukraine. And of course, there are no U.S. troops in Ukraine except for those officers that are assigned to the embassy in the Office of Defense Cooperation, whose task is to make sure accountability of every javelin, every artillery round, every set of binoculars. Oh, you can shake your head if you want to. That's a fact. So
why don't you stop pretending that we don't have United States Special Forces on the ground right this second? We don't have CIA agents all over Ukraine right this second. Why don't you just stop pretending? Because it's nonsense. And we all know it's nonsense. This is the way, hang on. This is the way it's been going for a long time. And when you talk about, well, Andrew, what we're actually doing is we're spending a whole bunch of money on refurbishing equipment here instead of buying new equipment to send over there. So what? So why you're still spending tons of my money on something I don't care about to send over to a nation, which is corrupt as hell. So can we just stop BSing each other for a second? Yes, the United States has boots on the ground there. Yes, we have special forces units there. We have CIA agents there, and we would be fools to pretend we don't.
It's an interesting argumentative style that you had, and you know, I always, when people start calling me names or whatever, then I really, the credibility.
I didn't call you any names, sir. I didn't call you any names.
Whatever. Okay.
What was the name that I called you?
I think the key is this idea of trying to end the war.
Actually, just offended by tone. You just don't like tone. You know, maybe a little tone policing getting worked in there. Maybe that southern drawl where you try to make yourself sound likable because you have it doesn't work so well on me because you can't gaslight me with this stuff. It's nonsense. Yes, there's boots on the ground there. Yes, there's been boots on the ground there probably since the beginning. Yes, we're spending $100 billion plus on equipment that we then either send over there. And by the way, there's hidden money going over there too. This is such nonsense. Just stop gaslighting the American people. Stop it. We're not stupid. We've seen this on repeat so many times now. So many times.
Andrew Wilson is exactly right. It doesn't matter if you're spending money to refurbish, not buy new. It doesn't matter. You're spending the money. You're spending our money to begin with. I mean, it's insane. Like, the United States is funding the Ukraine war to a tune 4 times what all of Europe has put into it. So the people who are there over in Europe aren't even spending all but a fraction of the same amount that we are on the Ukraine war. But somehow this is all our fault if we don't give them the money. This is Ukraine's war. This is not ours. It's got nothing to do with us. And Andrew Wilson, I also agree, is probably right as well, that there are boots on the ground because we've been through Afghanistan, we've been through Iraq. We've seen this play out over decades and decades. The CIA moving, the lies behind what's really going on in the wars again and again and again. I don't know about you folks, you can let me know in the comments, but me personally, I have no reason to believe anyone from NATO or anybody, outside of maybe Pete Hegseth, after he finds out what's really going on, that actually what's going on over there is really what's going on. I don't trust any of these people. I absolutely don't trust NATO. I don't trust the left. I don't trust the globalists. And I don't trust any of these people because they seem far too comfortable spending our money to fund their war that has nothing to do with us. But they always try to shame us at the same time if we want to say anything in return, like Andrew Wilson is saying. Leave a like, it helps the algorithm. Let's get back in.
General, respond.
The idea of ending the war, of course, is exactly what we would like to do, but it needs to be an end that is sustainable. And I think President Zelensky understands that he can't just sign or accept an end to the war where Russia will wait for us to lose interest, because we always do lose interest, and then they pick right back up with a resumption of the conflict after we have left or turned our back. And so I think it's reasonable to expect the Ukrainians to want some sort of guarantee, whether that's continued aid, continued equipment, or presence. They haven't. I don't know exactly what that looks like. Obviously, I would prefer to see Ukraine in NATO. We get better the day they join NATO. It's not going to happen anytime soon, especially if the United States is not willing to do it, and the Biden administration also is not willing to do it. But how do we end it when you're the partner on the other side, negotiating partner on the other side of the table is Vladimir Putin? I mean, there's no reason to have confidence that they will live up to any agreement because there's nothing in their history. And I do appreciate that Andrew likes my North Florida accent.
Let me bring in Dave. I want to bring in Dave. We've got.
Yeah, I never quite understand this argument that seems to just logically fall apart, that we can't end a war because the war might pick up at some point in the future, and therefore, if we don't have a perfect guarantee that, I mean, even if it, I mean, I don't know. I've heard the entire time through this war, including on your show, Piers, that if Putin was successful in Ukraine, then he was going to move on Poland, right? Like, this is what Joe Biden kept saying. This was the official, like, fear mongering of this war. And so if you're telling me that even NATO membership isn't a guarantee, then yes, we never have a perfect guarantee. By the way, you also don't have a guarantee from any government in the history of the world. That doesn't mean that ending a war isn't still a positive. And I just want to go back to what was, brought up initially. The idea that this was a case of failed deterrence, and that if only we had deterred Vladimir Putin sooner, then we could have avoided this whole thing. I mean, let's just kind of quickly overlook the last 20 years of U.S. foreign policy in Europe. We've expanded NATO all the way to Vladimir Putin's borders. We constantly floated out the idea for years that we would include Ukraine at some point, give them full membership. We said point blank in 2008 at the Bucharest summit that we were bringing Georgia and Ukraine into NATO before Russia ended up going to war with Georgia there. And then we look, Piers, like we've done this before on the show too, right? But just imagine, if you can, have a little bit of strategic empathy and put yourself in the Russian shoes. If Russia, let's say the Soviet Union had never collapsed, and the Soviet Union had poured $100 million into a Mexican street protest that overthrew a democratically elected government, and they had been saying for years they were going to bring Mexico into their military alliance, and then when the new government came up, they recognized them immediately and started arming them, as Donald Trump foolishly bragged about the other day with Zelensky in the Oval Office. Pierce, do you think Americans would feel that was deterrence, or do you think we might view that as a provocation? I mean, like, it's just,
Stop
by
using
the way,
logic,
when
Dave.
Donald
Stop
Trump...
using logic, Dave.
Well, look,
well, let me ask, rather than me try and answer a very logical question, let me get Jake to respond to that.
So the first thing that he said, what is the concern if Russia takes Ukraine? If Russia can't even go 60 kilometers deep and take the city of Pokrovsk, what is the threat to NATO? And it's, yes, absorbing a country of 40 million people, absorbing a country that has $10 trillion of natural resources under the ground. It's the strategic location on the Black Sea. If Russia absorbs Ukraine, they will Russify the people. They will annihilate the Ukrainian identity, turn them into Russians, and then start press ganging them into the military and send them into meat wave attacks against the Baltics, against Poland and the Suwalki Gap. We're trying to prevent Russia from getting stronger. And I don't care about what Russia thinks or feels. Russia is not a great power. Russia has an economy the same size roughly as Spain. Do you think Spain is a great power that the United States should respect?
Exactly, dude. Listen, we are in the business of trying to be a world empire, and we're going broke. We're $36 trillion in debt because we can't afford to do it. We've blown $8 trillion in the last 20 years on foreign wars.
Why is Donald Trump talking about invading Greenland? Why is Donald Trump talking about invading Panama?
I don't agree with that.
Why is Donald Trump talking about annexing Canada? Why is he talking about ethnic cleansing in the Gaza Strip? That is empire.
See, you lost
red herring.
is the
red
one
herring. Stay on
pushing
topic,
for
Liv.
America to be
You
a global
lost
empire.
Liv.
And
That's
now
a
you're
total
moving.
red herring. Total red herring.
Completely.
herring.
And by the way, I don't
like,
support.
Like, go
Is the
after
guy
the
who smokes
argument.
and spends all day arguing with strippers and OnlyFans girls going to speak up? I don't know
They
who
make
this
better
guy
arguments
is.
than you do,
General
bro.
Ben Hodges,
It's not my fault
thank
that you
so
have a
much
low
for your
IQ,
service to
lower
this
IQ
country.
than a stripper
You're
and
a
an
hero.
OnlyFans
You're an
girl.
expert.
I have to say, folks, this guy Jake Bro, who was just tried shooting insults at Andrew Wilson, is a complete idiot. And yeah, I agree with Andrew Wilson. Probably some of these strippers even have smarter IQs than him, because if you listen to him, he discounted his own argument when he was talking to Dave Smith. Like, he's talking to Dave Smith and he's saying, like, Russia's not a great power. They're the size of Spain. Well, are we scared of Spain taking over Europe then? Are we scared of Spain? Like, you idiot. You just, you took away all the fear from Russia by equating it to a smaller country that no one's afraid of. But then you're also worried at the same time that Russia is going to conquer Ukraine and then force all the Ukrainians into a war, which they've already been doing the entire time, into a different war. It's like he doesn't think at all. I don't know who this guy is. This is the first time I've seen him, but this guy is dumb as a bag of rocks. I mean, Dave Smith made a very logical argument that Andrew Wilson even agreed with, that I think most people could follow if you have some sort of just empathy to look at from the other side and logically play this out step by step. And then Jake Bro just absolutely diverts and wants to talk about something else. And you always know when you have someone basically on the ropes is when they start, as he did with Andrew Wilson, start shooting attacks and trying to undercut him. Like, if you stray from the argument and you start attacking the other people on the other side, making the argument, oh, he's at this, then you're just trying to dismiss him. Oh, Andrew Wilson, he's on OnlyFans. He talks this, he's an idiot. I don't even need to listen to him. Never mind whether he makes sense or good points at not. You always know someone is running away from an argument when they try to pull that stunt. But folks, let me know in the comments what you thought about what Andrew Wilson had to say to these two idiots and neocons in this panel on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Thanks for watching. Take care, like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.